aren't going to let any cars or water hoses turn us around. We aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
For all of your personal injury needs, contact W. Mark McKee in Columbia, Louisiana. He can be reached at 318-649-2622. Mark is also a proud supporter of the African American community and can be counted on. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Bear and Glass. We are honored to have you as a guest tonight and want to thank each of you for your faithful support. Without further delay, allow me to introduce to you Mr. Bear and Glass. Mr. Glass, take it away.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass, July 11, 2016, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. It is once again a typical Monday. The only difference between last Monday and this Monday is that it appears that the whole world is watching America as it continues to make the same old mistake over and over again. So the question is, what is it that we must do to change the tone of what's going on? What is it that you can do as an individual to make a difference in the community from whence you come? The question is, what is it that you are willing to do rather than remain silent and get up and get out and go among the four walls and talk to the people about what we call justice here in America in 2016. Tonight's topic is, what is the protocol that I put yourself in this position? What is the protocol I should follow when stopped by the police? What do I have to answer, if anything, when asked by an officer when stopped? Tonight we're going to bring some professionals in that can talk to you directly. They're not representing you as a client. They're only coming on for purposes of informing the community, which they are allowed to do. But we don't want to put them in a compromising position, nor will they put themselves in a compromising position to cause them to lose what they've earned, which is their license. Tonight, we'll be joined by attorney Chareka Marchelle. I think I pronounced that right. If I don't, I'll let you correct me. And attorney C.J. Lawrence. Chareka is from Houston, Texas. C.J. is hailing out, I believe, Mississippi. The call-in number tonight is once again 773-897-6398, or you can go directly to www.thesmokingglasshour.com. Or if you want to get on a live link and talk to us live, you can go to Spreaker, that's SPREAKER.com, and look for the Smoking Glass Hour, and you can go in and chat with us live. We're going to do, at some point, allow callers to call in and ask whatever question that they may ask to become more informed about what it is that's going on in America. We also will be joined tonight by our normal guest, Miss Nikki Bedwick from Las Vegas, Nevada. Let me see, David Lamont from Colorado. Aaron Hopkins from Dallas, Texas. Paula Stafford from Missouri. Debbie Dilks from Missouri. Also, Pastor A.F. Riggins, Dr. Riggins, rather, from Houston, Texas, along with Vanessa Ghazi from Houston, Texas as well. Chareka and CJ, how are you guys doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Okay, CJ, how are you doing?
Thank you for having us. Doing very well, sir. I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to be on your program and speak to the people tonight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Chareka and CJ, I reached out to several people to come on and use what we call giving back to the community at no charge. And we know that sometimes some people may be above and beyond to do something like this. Some people may feel like it's not worthy for them to do it, or whatever the case may be. You guys accept it. So on behalf of all of us here at the Smoking Glass Hour, we want to say thank you for taking out of your busy schedule to come on and talk about this very, very, very important issue. Now, CJ and Chareka, I'll shoot it to you first, Chareka. Tonight's topic is what is the protocol that people should follow when stopped by the police? What do they have to answer, if anything, when asked by an officer when stopped? A lot of people have this clouded judgment, and a lot of people really don't know what their constitutional rights are when it comes to a traffic stop or an encounter with a police officer. So hopefully tonight we can put this in some kind of perspective, and people can leave here tonight with more information than they had before they came. Chareka, take that question and let's go with it.
Before I answer it, I just want to tell you that I really appreciate you extending the offer to have me here on your show. I'm not, I can't speak for, any of the other attorneys who you reached out to, but I think that it's my responsibility to help inform the community of their rights, specifically in dealing with police encounters. And so, I just want to thank you for inviting me on your show.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that when people are pulled over by officers, there's a sense of panic already. And one of the first things that, you just need to be prepared for is you need to be prepared to identify yourself. An officer always has a right to know who it is they're dealing with. And so you have to be prepared to produce some form of identification.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, what we've been seeing lately with the concealed handgun licenses, if you are a holder of a concealed handgun license, you are supposed to inform the officer, provide your license, and also let them know where the gun is located. I know that right now that has been a major issue, specifically with the Philando Castillo case because of what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the information that you must provide in the beginning of the encounter. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of times officers start digging into your whereabouts, where you're coming from, where are you going. Quite frankly, that's none of their business.
So Chareka, right where you at, which was one of the main questions that a lot of guys have asked, because we talk on a weekly basis, and I want to make sure that people that's out there listening understand. Once they're stopped and they provide the ID, the identification, and if they have a concealed weapon, they inform the officer of that and they show that information. If they ask, well, Mr. Glass or Miss Marcelle, where are you going? Start from that point.
You can say, pretty much you just can let them know that you prefer not to answer that question.
Okay.
You can, however nicely you would like to say it, you could just say, I would rather not answer that question. What happens is that's their way of getting you comfortable with opening up to them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot, and I'm
in my experience with my clients, I have a lot of clients who have these encounters, and quite frankly, they talk too much.
Mm-hmm.
And they give way more information than is necessary. There is a Fifth Amendment right to avoid self-incrimination.
Mm-hmm.
That means telling on yourself. And so where you're going and where you're going to, most more than likely has nothing to do with why you were stopped by the police. If you were pulled over because you were speeding, then that may be a reason why you explain where you're going, because maybe you're taking somebody to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have no idea why you're pulled over, it's probably in your best interest to avoid a lot of questions until you feel like it is time to clarify a specific issue with the traffic stop. But otherwise, the less you say, the better.
Mm-hmm. Okay. CJ, you got anything you want to add to that?
Absolutely. And first, I'd just like to say that it's an honor being on your show tonight with Attorney Chareka Gadsden, who I believe and see as one of the greatest freedom fighters right now in Texas. And so it's an honor to be on the show with somebody that's truly fighting for our people's rights in the way that she does, and on a daily basis. With regard to your question, I'm gonna go into sort of what she was talking about as well. Now, if we start off, we're talking about a vehicle stop. The officer pulls you over in a vehicle, then absolutely you need to provide a driver's license because you are driving. Right, and you can't drive a vehicle, you can't operate a vehicle without a valid license.
Correct.
So it's providing a license at that time is part of the law. If you have a passenger with you, for instance, they don't have to provide a driver's license because they're not driving at that time. But however, the driver has to provide a driver's license because it's part of the requirement when it comes to driving. However, what we're seeing around this country as well is Philando Castile Alton Sterling was not driving down in Baton Rouge at the time that he was stopped. And he would have not been required to provide any form of driver's license to the police at that time because Alton Sterling was not driving at that time. Really, the only time you're going to need to provide a form of photo ID as a driver's license or anything of that nature is when you're in the airport and when you're actually driving a vehicle. When you're walking on the street, it is valid enough that you provide the officer with your information verbally, as far as your name is concerned, as far as identifying who you are to that officer.
So, CJ,
officer, yes, sir.
If and I'm trying to make sure I get these points. If you're walking and you provide that verbal information, and that verbal information leads to a confrontation, which is subject to happen or could happen or have happened. How? Because some are saying there were several guys on the line now. We all were saying that we are professionals. But the question is, we don't know what to do now because what they tell you to do has been done and you still ended up going to the grave. So we're trying to just make sure everybody get a balanced understanding of those constitutional rights so when they are approached, they don't have this fear of actually becoming nervous and doing the things that's out of context. I'll let you finish.
Right. So the thing that I'll say with regard to that is you don't need a driver's license to walk. Okay? The thing that we have to remember is we don't need a driver's license to walk. Now, that doesn't mean don't cooperate with the police officers at the time that you encounter the officers, because what we're seeing these days is that it's not so much a matter of asserting our pride in that moment as it is surviving. As we can see with the instance of Philando Castile, who had done everything right. He wore his seatbelt, had a driver's license, he had a permit. Literally, he did everything that you could possibly do to comply with the officer, all the way down to letting the officer know that he had a weapon, and he still was killed. So even in understanding and knowing your rights, these are things that you have to be aware of and be cautious and be vigilant. Allow us the opportunity to argue on your behalf in the courtroom rather than leaving the argument in the street that day. But we still want you to understand that the officer can approach you, but even when an officer approaches you, he has to have either probable cause or a reasonable suspicion that a crime has been committed. Chareka was right on point when she said to the people tonight, don't talk too much, because you have a right to remain silent. And a lot of times what officers do is they will ask somebody, well, do you know why I stopped? Because a lot of times the officer doesn't even know why he stopped.
Okay.
Asking you, the reason he's asking you if you know why he stopped occasionally is because he wants you to tell on yourself. So the best to do in those instances sometimes is you can say no, officer, because it's really the officer's responsibility to inform you of why it is that you have been stopped in the first place. From a safety standpoint, and this is one thing that I want to say that I feel is essential. I actually just saw another video. The person survived it. But from a safety standpoint, as a black man, I think it's real important. I turn my lights on in my vehicle when I know I'm riding, legitimately. Then I'm going to turn my lights on in my vehicle at night with my hands in a visible manner, so that the officer can hear. Because in that moment, I'm truly in survival mode. This isn't so much a right thing as a tip in at least getting through that encounter. I think it's sad that although they're the ones that are employed to do the job, we are the ones that have to know what our rights are in these instances. But I think it's also critical that we know what our rights are and know how to survive these instances.
Okay. So, Chareka.
But
Go ahead, Chareka.
So I just wanted to also piggyback on what CJ was saying regarding just kind of tactics you can use when you are pulled over. One of the things that's extremely important for people to really start practicing is stop pulling over in places that will make you vulnerable. If you're going to be pulled over by the police, go to a well-lit area, and even try to be in a place that's populated and possibly has cameras recording for you too. If you want to give the officer notice that you're pulling over, turn your hazards on and slow down and just let him know that, this is my way of letting you know that I'm acknowledging you, but I'm pulling over where I feel safe. You can even call 911 and say, I have a car behind me. I don't feel safe in this location, so I'm going to pull over in a location that I feel like is safer for me. In addition
safer for both of
to
us.
that, yes. In addition to that, be comfortable with turning on your video. And as citizens in the community, we also need to be comfortable with stepping in and videotaping for others when we see someone having a police encounter. See how the cops now are trying to be they're trying to intimidate individuals into not using their cameras because they see what's happening as a result of people videotaping these encounters. And so we should take it upon ourselves to say, I see somebody having an encounter, I'm going to record it. So another right that you have during a police encounter is you most definitely can record. You most definitely can record.
Okay, Chareka and CJ, if I notice you said that you can pull over to a spot that you feel most safe at. So if you're going down, if you know the area where you're at, and this is hypothetical, and you know that the closest or the nearest safer place for you is, let's say, 5 or 10 some odd miles, away. I mean, do you still have the right to drive that distance, or what would be the most the best thing that person who would be put in that situation can do, because I'm trying to think of scenarios that people have asked me today that are listening now, but they don't like to talk, but they've asked these questions, and I want to make sure that we be as informative as possible. And I want to make sure that if there's anybody out there who lacks knowledge, and I call them ignorant people, we're not talking about police officers being this or being that. What we're talking about is informing the community, because it appears that some people have the misconception that if you talk about one bad apple in the bunch, you're talking about all the bad apples. But at the same time, if you talk about one African American that's bad and you group everybody in that group, we're not supposed to have issues. So I want to make sure that everybody understands. I'm speaking solely for myself on my broadcast, that we're talking about informing the community. So if you're out there and you have a reason to just grump and gripe, then you're probably not listening to the right station, because we're trying to be as informative as possible. And if you want to ask a question, you may do so. Chareka, so in that particular situation, what should they do?
I would recommend, if it's going to be a lengthy drive, I would recommend putting on your hazards, slowing down, and letting the officer know that I'm acknowledging you. I see that you're behind me. Basically, you have changed your driving behavior. If you're on a highway or somewhere, you're no longer going to be going the speed limit. You're going to slow down. And
right.
Like I said, you can call 911 and tell the dispatcher, this is my location.
Okay.
The officer behind me.
Okay.
And I am letting you know that I am going to pull over, but right now the area is not well lit and I'm not comfortable with pulling over. Mm-hmm. And so that will be a record that you have. If there is any, if it goes to court and you need to explain to somebody what took you so long to pull over, you can get that. You can subpoena that dispatch, that 911 dispatch report.
Okay. CJ, I got a question that was just sent in that says, so if you reach for your phone or camera, could that cause a potential problem for yourself or the officer?
Yes, it could. As we saw, Philando Castile was reaching for his driver's license after the police officer asked him to go get his driver's license, and he proceeded to shoot him 5 times in the chest. So I'm just speaking from a much more, from a standpoint of surviving the encounter standpoint. The best thing to do in those instances, like I said, if it's a dark area, turn on your light and let the officer know, officer, I am about to get my cell phone. Officer, I am about to get my I'm about to reach and get my driver's license. One brother, I just saw a video where a brother was asked to step out of a vehicle, and upon being asked to step out of the vehicle, he was trying to unbuckle his seatbelt because he had his seatbelt on. And the officer proceeded to start yelling at him, "Stop reaching, stop reaching, stop reaching." And the reality of that is the officer asked him to get out of the vehicle. How else was he going to with the officer unless he unbuckled his seatbelt in order to do so? So the reality is I don't think that it should be justified for someone to be shot with regard to that. But what we know is that in the minds of these officers, many of these officers, I'm not trying to generalize, but there's been times where we know Sean Bell wasn't reaching for anything. He had a wallet, and they shot him over 47 times up in New York. So what we have to understand is what we're up against, and the fact that, like you said, we should not be generalized in the same way that police do not want to be generalized. We should not be stereotyped in that way. But the reality is what we found is that because of the nature of the media and how we are portrayed in media all the time, and that's many of the officers' only opportunities to encounter and experience us as black men and women. Many times they approach us with an inherent level of fear that is that may not be typical with white folks. And the reality is that that inherent level of fear, plus them being armed with a weapon at the time, certainly is a dangerous cocktail us as black folk. And so we have to almost be in the same way that they send people to defensive driving school for speeding, so that you can think about how maybe other people drive dangerously. We have to think. It's sad that we have to do this. I wish that we did not have to.
Correct.
Continue to strive to a time where we're not having to do this, but we almost have to think for them. And I think it's unfortunate because I know that white folks ain't having know your rights trainings, but we are. And I think it's important for us to understand that in those moments, what we're trying to do, in addition to understanding what our rights are, is survive those moments, so that we can continue to stand and continue to fight for our community. I would rather see you at the protest. I would rather see you at the meeting than have to bury you because you were one-on-one attempting to be vigilant. Although justifiable, attempting simply to be vigilant in those moments. But you should always stand for yourself and always know what your rights are in each and every moment.
Okay, CJ, and
I would just
go ahead, Chareka. Go ahead.
I would just say that anybody who is asking a question about reaching for their phone, I know they're playing games, because I see a lot of people riding in Texas, driving in Texas, so y'all already have y'all phones in y'all hand anyway. There are very few people who are going to be reaching for their phone.
Correct.
During the time that you are about to get pulled over, you know you already calling somebody to tell something, you need to come pick me up, I got this. I know you already have your phone in your hand. If you can't get the video, get the audio. But just like you're in the car, when you're in the car pulling over and you're waiting for him to approach, you have enough time to hit the record button. You don't have to wait till he gets to your car to initiate to start the video.
Okay, right.
So keep that in mind. Don't try to act like y'all ain't driving shit.
There is an app that's available through. There's an app that's available through the ACLU that's made specifically for documenting police encounters and things like that. So that may be something that's useful. But Sister Diamond Reynolds used was Facebook Live, which was amazing because she was actually documenting and saving it real time for everybody to be a witness of what's going on also in that moment.
Right, CJ, Chareka, got a question that was just submitted, and I think you guys may have touched on this, and they may have just tuned in. Does everyone in the car have to produce IDs or just the driver?
Okay, I'll speak on this one, and then Chareka, if you want to follow up, please do. The driver of the vehicle must produce his driver's license. Nobody else in the vehicle has to actually produce a driver's license. They can provide what their identification is. They do not have to provide. They don't have to provide a physical driver's license or ID, because you're not required to have a driver's license with you when you're not driving a vehicle. But if you don't have a driver's license, or what if you left your driver's license? If you don't have it, or if you left it, then the only thing that you can do is identify yourself verbally, and the officer has to accept that as a valid provision of identification. Okay. Now that doesn't mean to tell the officer some false information.
Correct.
What it means is simply to say, my name is, for instance, my name is CJ Lawrence, and I can say I live in such and such, if that's what I choose to do. But I do not have to provide my driver's license information. It's truly a no. I've identified myself once I say it with my name.
Okay, right. And again, tonight we're talking to attorney Chareka Marchelle and CJ Lawrence. We're talking tonight about what is the protocol that one should follow when stopped by the police. What do you have to answer, if anything, when asked by an officer when stopped? We got another comment out here that your guest just made a lot of great points about the fear of an officer because of whatever his biases is. That also comes from the departmental culture and what is taught to them as the norm of that particular department. And that may be true, but there is a norm that we are actually born the way we are. and we had nothing to do with coming out with the color that we are. So what I'm trying to get at tonight is that all of these provisions, all of these barriers, all of these burdens that we feel now that we have to go through, why should we have to go through those when we're just average citizen? Nobody's trying to rob somebody else and take whatever it is that they have. All we're asking for is to be treated in the same manner as anybody else, because if I leave my house and all of my tail lights are working and I'm going within a 30-mile radius, how am I supposed to know if my tail light goes out if I get stopped? So I don't want to have to worry about explaining this, that, or the other just because a tail light is out, when I'm going to comply. If you treat me fairly, I'm going to treat you fairly. If you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you what I think you need to know. If I'm going to get a ticket, you give me a ticket. I'm going to go on about my business. I don't think that whether you have a badge or no badge, that you should be harassed by somebody. I don't think if you have a badge or no badge, that you should be going out there killing somebody that's innocent. I think we all should learn what logic and reason, reason is. So at the end of the day, I'm seeing a lot of silence from people who really should be speaking up. Okay, so when we look at all of this silence, because I really believe that everybody that's on this line tonight want this particular country to do better than what it is doing with regards to the whole world looking at us right now and saying, how can you come and tell us about human rights when you have your own human rights problem? So what I'm going to do now, Chareka and CJ, I'm going to bring one of the guests that's out there now, Mr. Aaron Hopkins from Dallas, Texas. Aaron, do you have any question or comment to Chareka or CJ at the moment?
Yeah, I do, Baron, and I want to say personally, thank to both guests for coming on and sharing information that is greatly needed. I just want to, I know this has already been said, I heard the gentleman and I heard Aaron, you in your comments basically express the same thing, but I just, it's absolutely disgusting to me to have to consider that you have to go above and beyond any means other than just being a law-abiding citizen driving in your car. And keep in mind, I have an 18-year-old who is I call him a new driver. So he's now driving himself to work, he's driving himself to church, he's driving himself to choir rehearsal, things of this nature. So, just think of the elevated fear that is in the mind of a parent when they have a son or a daughter, a teenager, driving now, unaware of many of the just basic laws, let alone, how to handle or carry themselves at in the situation of a routine traffic stop. It disgusts me to no end to think about, what we have, how we have to strategize just to ensure that our children come back home alive. It's just, I can't express that enough. But again, my main question, question kind of, and as well as a statement. It seems realistic and reasonable to have a city mayor kind of step in a situation like this. And I know this would have to be a city-by-city basis, but there's got to be some sort of additional protocol or an enhanced protocol for a routine traffic stop. Because I heard I think it was the attorney mentioned, as a driver of a vehicle, we should try to find well-lit areas or well-populated areas, things of this nature. So in reference to that, it seems like an officer should be told by his precinct captain, lieutenant, because of the situation and circumstances, to keep everybody safe, pull over people pull them over in well-lit areas. So there's two-way compliance is what I'm getting at. But of course we know it takes participation from everybody involved. And I just again, these types of things, it seems like the more we come up with solutions, the more other problems come from them. And it's very unfortunate.
I think that I'm glad you brought up that point, because one thing that I want to impress upon people is that it's not going to be one thing that's going to bring about the change that we want. We are all going to have to move collectively together and do more than one thing that's going to affect what our encounters are and what the climate is that we're dealing with right now. With him bringing up the fact that we need to be requesting protocol being established that addresses, routine traffic stops, we definitely do. And he is absolutely correct. That's something that you have to address with the particular city, which is the city council and the mayor's office. Now, how do you do that? By going and speaking to them when they are having their meetings. Now, a lot of people are very hesitant to deal with, being political. But we're not going to get where we want to get by doing one thing and leaving alone important aspects of it. And talking to the individuals who are implementing policies and enforcing the policies is what we're going to have to do. And we're also going to have to be comfortable with letting people know that if you don't move the way that we're asking you to move, when it's time to vote, guess who we won't be voting for?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Correct. So Chareka, what you're saying is, and I believe you posted it somewhere yesterday or today, if you really want to make the greatest effect, you actually get out there in November, not just November, but anytime there's a local, a state, or a national election, you get out there and vote. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The laws and the policies that affect us come directly from those people in those people in those positions. Mm-hmm. So how can we have an issue with laws and protocols and policies that we are subjected to, and we're not talking to the people who are writing the policy, mm-hmm. who are enforcing the policy?
Correct.
Who are coming up with the policy. If
right.
you have an issue with the law, we need to figure out, we have an issue with how a police officer handles us, and we feel like it was outside of the law, we have recourse to that. But people are very, and I'm not, let me not say people, but a lot of people just feel like the political process does not bear fruit.
Correct.
And that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of these policies and laws that we're subjected to, they came from somewhere.
Correct.
We need to look at the people. We need to educate ourselves on the candidates. We need to also be, as a community, looking for people who are going to be pushing for the issues that are supportive of us. We need to be bringing up people who are ready to be those candidates and supporting them to get into these positions. It's called elected officials. It makes no sense for us not to participate in the election process. Right.
And Chareka, I'm gonna get to that if I can. I got so many out there who are chiming in and want to ask, they're anxious. So let me go to Las Vegas. Nikki, do you have a question or comment to CJ or Chareka?
Good evening, Chareka. Good evening, CJ. I'm listening with horror. I'm white, and I have 4 children, and each one of them have gone through the driving process, and I've never had to talk. And I've never feared for the safety other than a traffic accident, my boys coming home. I've never feared that, I've never had to have the talk. And so that the white listeners out there understand that is part of our white privilege. Our children, we do not fear for our children coming home safely. We do not fear for our children being pulled over. And so I just really want to make that pertinent point. But just before the broadcast, I watched the Sandra Bland video, and she was asked to, and you could see the escalation. You could see the questions being asked, and she was asked where she was going, and then she was asked, she was told, you seem unhappy. And she told the officer that she was. She had pulled over to let him pass, and she was quite upset about getting a ticket. So she engaged the officer, and you could see the officer escalating. While she was sitting there, she lit a cigarette, and if you've been a smoker, I have. It calms the nerves. And when he asked her to put out her cigarette, she said, "No, I'm in my car." Did she in fact have to put out, dual question, did she in fact have to put out her cigarette? And then when he told her he opened the door and told her to step off the car. Was that lawful?
There's no law that states that you cannot smoke a cigarette. There's no law that states
Outside.
you can't light a cigarette within while having an encounter with the police officer. That was him flexing his authority and basically just feeling like this black woman has her nerve.
Oh,
so that was more of that was about him being personally offended by her rather than her breaking a law.
With regard to, I'm gonna first I'd like to say I appreciate you for having that small anecdote at the beginning with regard to acknowledging that white privilege is a real thing that exists and it's something that exists to the extent that obviously some have become oblivious to it because there's no longer black and white restrooms and black and white schools and so on and so forth as far as segregation is concerned, and so you can't see the dark disparity and the impact that it has had on each community, but it still does exist, and when we take into account that it does, it's a very critical part of having a very real conversation about this situation. With regard to Sandra Bland having the right to smoke, absolutely, she had the right to smoke outside. A lot of states have smoking laws when it comes to being inside of restaurants and common areas, things of that nature, but she was not in a common area at that time. And so the officer in that instance was overstepping his bounds by requesting or ordering that she put out a cigarette. His duty is to enforce the laws that exist, not to create them. With regard to asking Sandra Bland to step out of the vehicle, the question that you can ask an officer before you do that is, officer, am I being detained? Because you have the right to know if there's a reason that you're being asked to step out of a vehicle. I think that's very critically important, particularly when you are a woman being asked by a male officer to step out of a vehicle. Officer, am I being detained? But anybody has the right to ask that. And if you're not being detained, then there are certain things that you don't have to do. But for the sake of argument, let's say because he's going to file failure to comply with order charges, you step out of the vehicle. At that time, he doesn't have the right to abuse you. He should inform you of what it is you've been stopped for, what it is you're being detained for. You should have knowledge of these things. You don't have to answer questions if you're being detained. You have a right to remain silent. You have a right to attorney. Don't ever waive any of your rights, people. Anybody that's listening, never waive any of your rights. You take all of your rights. You don't talk to the police about what it is. You don't explain it to them because it is not their job to help you with your defense. Police officers' job is to solve the crime. If in fact the crime exists, it is to help provide information and evidence to the prosecutor with which to prosecute. So understand that making a statement to police is never going to be in your interest if you are in fact the person of interest. Unless it's an instance like what we saw in Dallas, where they had clear evidence that the young man that they initially named as a person of interest could not have been involved with the incident. But I want to stress to people, you don't waive your right to a search. If an officer asks you, can he search your vehicle? They know. Because if he's asking you if he can search it, then he knows that he cannot unless you give him permission. Say no to that.
Let me ask you this. With the Sandra Bland video, and it was so obvious the aggression of the police officer, and I agree with Chareka exactly what happened. He took exception to. She was an exceptionally strong woman, and he took exception, and he actually pulled her out of the car. Now she was exercising her right to smoking her own car. She was exercising her rights. That's why she was being removed from the car. And the situation became an escalated situation.
Hey, CJ.
He was going to get his way. What does someone do when if the situation reaches that point? Because now it's dangerous. What?
Mm-hmm.
If there has to step out the car and they ask why and won't, that's the question, and he won't tell the person why, what do they do at that point?
Right. Well, so the one thing that we do know is typically when officers pull people over for traffic tickets, which is what the initial stop for Sandra Bland was, those people aren't asked to either step out of the car and they are not detained. Typically, you get a traffic ticket, you go to traffic court, you pay their traffic ticket, right? Okay. That's typically how that works. So, obviously, he interjected his personal feelings into a situation that should not have been a personal one for him. Mm-hmm. And obviously, she had every right to be upset with the fact that now he had gone beyond simply questioning her or providing her with tickets. He had taken exception to that, and he done what he did. Mm-hmm. As far as engaging in a physical encounter, now I'm speaking from the perspective of a black man. I'm being real with you. If I'm not suggesting to anyone to engage in a physical encounter with a police officer when you are stopped by a police officer. And if it's a incident like Sandra Bland, and you are fighting back, then you have to understand the repercussions that come with fighting back. Now, I can't speak for everybody else, but if you fight back, you have to understand the consequences that can potentially come with fighting back. Mm-hmm. When there's video of you fighting back, when there's video of you resisting, understand that for black people, and I'm being quite honest here, quite frank, we see black people every day that are being released from this justice system for crimes that they did not commit from 30, 40, 50 years ago. So understand that this justice system is not has not been designed by us nor to work for us. That's not to say that we don't have our own resources that we go through within it, but we must understand the reality of it. So when I'm suggesting, I have to be careful and suggest to someone that if an officer is fighting, you should fight back. Because if you fight back, understand that at that point you are fighting for your life, and that officer is probably also fighting for their life. There's a video that every officer sees when he goes through officer training school, and this video is of a traffic stop where he encounters this Vietnam veteran, and the Vietnam veteran proceeds to engage in a shootout with an officer, and the officer winds up dying as a result of the shootout with a Vietnam veteran who has a long rifle in it. And I believe that particular training video gives officers a heightened level of fear when it comes to engaging really anyone at a traffic stop, but particularly when it comes to engaging black men at a traffic stop. And so understand that when these people are encountering you, a lot of times they are afraid of you, and that's the reality of it. I know that I've heard the officer's voice tremble as they talk to me, even though I'm the one who's being questioned. And when I understand that, then I understand that I'm dealing with someone that even if I choose to assert whatever power I may feel I have to understand that person has at that moment,
right,
that I don't have,
right,
in a weapon. And ultimately, what I'm trying to do is survive. Not because I'm so proud that I don't want to stand up for myself, mm-hmm. because I want to be able to live and fight another day, mm-hmm. in this whole thing. Okay,
CJ.
Thank you.
One thing that I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Chareka, because one of the callers out there got a question. Go ahead, Chareka. I'll bring him up.
Yes, it's just very important to know that your fight does not have to be in that moment. You always have the right to handle that situation in the manner in which you feel like you need to handle it, because at the end of the day, this is going to be personal situations. People are going to move how they feel they need to move. But you always have the right to go file a complaint at the police station. People may think, that's a waste of time, but let me tell you how that comes full circle. When a cop is acting beyond his authority and violating constitutional rights, lawyers get access to that information.
Correct.
If he continues to do it and he continues to show that behavior, it's gonna have an effect on the cases that he is the arrest officer on.
Correct.
So it's always in your best interest to not just have the encounter and take that anger home and feel like you have been done wrong. It's feel like that, go home and then go to the police station the next day and file a complaint. If you are not comfortable with doing it and you are in the Houston area, contact me. I'll go down there with you.
And Chareka, before the show is over with, I'm going to give you and CJ the opportunity to extend, your business. I'm going to give you the opportunity to free advertise what it is that you're doing, because that's my way of showing thanks and appreciation for taking out the time to come on. We're all in this for the same reason. I'm not making a dollar off of this show tonight, so I want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to provide your information out there, not just for this type of situation, because you do criminal and civil. Let me bring Aaron Hopkins back in. Aaron, you had a question. Go ahead.
Absolutely. She actually just kind of read my mind and went into the area of my question. And so here's basically what I wanted to ask. At the point where a situation has occurred and deadly force was used, one of the things that I honestly tell you that is elevating the anger of all the communities around the country is the fact that after deadly force is used, an officer can still leave with paid administrative leave. So, as an attorney, if you're trying this case, at what point are you able to or request the judge to remove that status?
Hey, Aaron, before Chareka and CJ answer something like that, we put out a disclaimer first. This is a hypothetical situation, and lawyers are prohibited from doing certain things that are civilian. But CJ, I'll let you and Chareka do that because you guys know what you need to do to get off into those situations. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, I'm. Of course, this isn't. I don't have a contractual relationship with you, and so me answering this question, is not me giving you any legal advice. Right. It's just letting you know I'm just letting you know what your options are. One of the things that we all have to, know is that every encounter with a police officer does not have to just remain criminal. If you can make it a civil lawsuit and sue the city, the police department that the officer is affiliated with. And that's when you make them address their behavior. Now, in regards to their policies about, how they, handle the officer's employment during that time, that's something that is not within the reach of your lawsuit, because that goes to back to policies. That's an issue of policies that that the police department or the particular city has implemented. During the time that they do an investigation, this is what they decide. This is how they decide they're going to handle the employee. But that's when you have a issue with the officer that included excessive force, you go file your excessive force civil rights violation in federal court. That's how you get the officers to be responsible for that. And people need to remember that's an option for them, because a lot of times people feel upset when they see an officer that is not criminally charged, but that's not the end. That's not the end. And it also changes the accountability. It goes from being criminally charged means that you are dealing with that particular officer. When you when you file a federal suit, you are charging the individuals who supervise him.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's who is approving or allowing his behavior. So that's when you're going at the head, is when you're filing your lawsuit against the city.
And the thing that we have to understand a lot of times is with criminal charges, when we're seeking criminal charges in these cases, it is not private attorneys like myself or attorney Chareka Gasson that are pursuing these charges, but it's the district attorney's office for pursuing those particular charges.
Correct.
Right? So that's an elected official that's making the decision on whether or not to bring those charges forth against a police officer for killing an unarmed black individual. So those are things that we must understand and must consider. We file lawsuits. We file civil suits against the police department.
Punitive damages and all that's included, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
So we do. That's what we do. That's the action that we can take against the police department, against the city, against whatever entity or body it is. I wanted to say something that I think is critical to what you're talking about as well. Is we're talking about accountability to the community with regard to the police. We're talking about us as a community being able to hold them more accountable. Chareka said something and touched on something earlier about us being engaged and being prepared to engage the city officials, our local officials, our state officials, our policymakers, our law enforcement, as well as our judicial branches of government on a local, because your judges are elected too. So when you consider those things, we have to organize ourselves from the ground up. Okay, that means we have to use our organizations that already exist, our homeowners associations and things of that nature. Because it's my sincere belief that we need a transformative face of law enforcement in this country as far as how policing is done. I personally believe that communities should be able to hire and fire the police that police their communities. That means that the police have to go through the community themselves in order. They literally have to go to the community and get approval from a body within that community in order to police that particular community. What that does is that allows those people within the community to already have a knowledge of who it is that's working within their community. And what that also does is it means that police officer knows that he is accountable to that community, and his actions will always have him accountable to that community if they have the ability to vote.
Hey, CJ, Chareka, let me bring in a doctor that's out there from the state of California. Come on in, caller from California.
Hello.
Hello. Come on in, caller.
This is Sally Broder. Hi. I just wanted to kind of touch base on some of the things that you were just saying. Great program. Thank you so much for all the knowledge that you're giving all of us. What I do, I'm a psychologist, and I train law enforcement out here in California. And, one of the things that I know to be true is what's happening in terms of the fear of police officers towards black people that they stop. All the things that are going on, I think, are a cultural problem within the departments themselves. And so I really resonate with everything that you're saying about getting things together from the ground up. That's what I have always said, and I know that I cannot be elected myself from mistakes that I made as a younger person. But if I could, I would, because the only way anything gets really changed is if we start putting forth the people that believe that way into offices that they get elected to, and start, making changes where they can. So here's an example. What I think, I've been watching all this stuff with the Dallas situation, and the minute the Dallas situation happened, everybody got shut down when we were talking about what happened with the two individuals that were killed. The conversation stopped because all of a sudden now we're worried about the cops, and of course we're worried about the cops because they didn't go home that night, and they feel targeted. And I wrote something that I said, all the officers had to do was wear their uniform that day, and all a black person has to do is wake up, drive their car, and be black that day. The problem is it's a mirror image of each other, and what I personally believe, because I know about the bias in all law enforcement agencies, because I train them, is that the ethic and the culture within each department needs to be led by the leaders that are in it. But it also, what I think needs to happen right now is a bridge between the communities and what people like Black Lives Matter and other organizations are trying to say, and some way to bridge that into the law enforcement agencies. Now, you know, I said today that I think the guy, David Brown, the police chief of Dallas, would be an excellent person to be solicited to be one of these conduits, one of these leaders, as a person that knows both sides of the situation. Here he is leading the Dallas Police Department, losing his officers, but he also is a black man that lost his son that got killed by the police. So in order for any of this to change, my feeling is talks need to happen between the police, sitting down in a room with leaders of the police associations and black police officers that are leaders with the communities that they serve, and nationally, a national forum for that. And you know, that's what I think. And people have said, well, why do we have to have leaders? Why don't they just respect us? We got what we got right now. We got what we got. And you know, if there continues to be this polarization, like if you're, you know, this thing about if you're feeling, you know, horror by the cops being killed, then you must not be for Black Lives Matter. If you're feeling horror for the people the black people got killed by cops, then you must not be for police. It's BS, you know. Right. And I'm, you know, a white woman that has lived with white privilege my whole life, but I also train black police officers. So it's a very if nothing is bridged, this is going to stay the same, you know, and the biases are going to continue. So, you know, there has to be movement on both sides, and I really wish that someone would, I mean, you know, maybe I can write a letter to the guy. Maybe there are people that could write a letter to this individual that maybe he could take this moment in time to be that bridge, to reach out to the community and say, we want to talk to you about how you feel when you're on the street, when you take a drive to the post office. How do you feel behind the wheel? And we will tell you how we feel, how we're afraid when we get in the car. We don't know if you're going to kill us. But that thing, we're both afraid. So what do we do?
But Dr. Broder, it would
change our regulations. Okay, great. So when we go out, are you going to, you know, not be aggressive towards us anymore? There has to be some sort of agreement on both sides.
A treaty.
Right, but Dr. Broder, let me ask you this, because this is where I kind of fall a little different. Everything that you're saying, I agree. But for 100 years, this same conversation, these same issues has been happening. Let me just back up. My mother always taught me, if you continue to beat a dog, eventually he gonna fight back. He gonna beat the hell out of you. For years, people have been beat on, and we've been crying injustice. Nobody believes that everything is okay. Oh, we didn't know racism was existing until the president of the United. That's a bunch of bull. So what I'm saying is this. I believe that, like I wrote earlier, the people who made these laws, this system that said that land of the free, home of the brave, liberty and justice for all, never included all. So those kids of those people who created these laws, that's where I think it should start, because I can't fix what somebody else has created.
What I'd like to say to Doctor is I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your insight. I think that a great deal of what you had to say is critical, but I also, along with Mr. Glass, do believe that to a great extent, what we find ourselves, the vicious cycle that we find ourselves in, is that we have always had a conversation in America about having a conversation about race, but we've never actually had that conversation. We've never actually addressed the elephant in the room. What we found ourselves doing, or what the generation prior to us perhaps found itself doing, was, attempting to address the issue, but now the can has been kicked down the road to the extent that we're literally trying to revisit the attempts to have a dialogue once bloodshed occurs. And we probably need to be more proactive rather than reactive in how we go about addressing these issues, but that has not occurred until this point. We talk about mass shootings in this country when mass shootings occur. We talk about the need for race relations in this country when vicious crimes against unarmed black people, or Charleston shootings in churches occur. And what I believe that I'm hearing from Mr. Glass, and what I agree with both from you and he, is that a conversation would be critical if we could trust that. One of the things that Malcolm X said was that it's going to be difficult to destroy the master's house with the master's tools. That doesn't mean that the house needs to be destroyed, but it certainly needs to be rehabilitated to an extent that we like we spoke about building from the ground up. We literally have to deconstruct what is in current existence and start to reimagine the policing system in this country. How we go about dealing with our policymakers in this country. We have to reimagine the prison system in this country. There's no reason that a country as purportedly progressive as the United States of America is also the largest as far as the prison industry is concerned in the world. When we're outpacing China, who has 4 times the amount of people that we have, it just doesn't make sense that that population is a larger population, and that the majority of that population is black men and women and brown men and women. So these are things that these are the things that we have to overcome in addressing it, and coming to the table on a conversation like that. Is we've never been included in the development of this system. The only part of this system that has always been for both black and white people is the way that the law has been applied to us. And I don't mean that has it been applied proportionally or disproportionately, but we've always been subject to the same legal system here in America as everyone else. But when it comes to how the laws work for us, that's not been the case. And so there's a distrust there. There's a real distrust there with regard to the enforcement of laws, the draft of laws, as we see with voter ID laws and things of that nature, and the way that the judicial system enforces those laws or judges those laws when they're sentencing black men and women to 10 and 20 times, 20% more time than they are our white counterparts. Those are things that certainly need to be addressed. If we, before we even have a conversation, those things must be acknowledged by the people that are in power currently. And if that's not the case, then that power needs to be redirected, and the people that are engaging in these conversations have to be people like ourselves that are on this call right now. That I know you stated earlier that you don't know if you could be one of the people to run for a certain position, but we need people like to be able to have a real conversation like that without people being afraid of transformative change.
Go ahead, Doc.
I'm trying to do what I can. One of the things that I was trying to think, what could I do that's practical and that I could actually get done, and I have a couple of ideas. One is to create some more training, some more training for police that I don't think they have here in talking about their racial bias, because I don't think it's being explicitly trained. But, you know, when you said that you have to work on the laws first before all this other stuff, one thing I know about police departments, although they're the first people you see before you go to court and before you go to prison, police departments are pretty removed from, in terms of the laws, and you can start at the departmental level in trying to affect change in the use of force policies. The use of force policies, I think one thing that is helpful right now, even though it's horrifying, is all the cameras. The fact that we have video and cameras, that's escalating the conversation. It's escalating the visibility of these acts by these, you know, bad police officers that are killing people. It's escalating the ability for the public to want some change. And so anyway, I see some hope in that. I see some hope because of that.
Doc.
But the use of force,
I just wanted to say one more
change.
thing to the doctor. I wanted to say one thing to the doctor. I'm sorry, I know I've been talking. But
Go ahead, CJ. That's okay.
What you're doing from a police end with regard to understanding how they think within the department and understanding the culture that exists within the department is critical. It's important. One of the things that I think you could do as well is perhaps go out into the community and talk to some of the people that talk to some black folk in the black community about how I would call it the collective victim impact that we experience each time that we witness one of these public lynchings. Or I know for me, it was difficult to sleep the first 2 or 3 nights after I saw Alton Sterling and I saw Philando Castile. And I think that we're living in an extended period of post-traumatic stress. I don't know if post-traumatic stress is the right word because it's still ongoing. So I don't know if post is the right word, but I can tell you that's a collective feeling that we're experiencing, and that a lot of what we're seeing today is a result of 300 years of that passed down from generation to generation.
Hey, CJ and
I
Doc.
would go so far as to call it chronic traumatization. You have chronic continual traumatization is what's happening.
Right. Hey, Doc, hold CJ and Doc. Let me do this because we're looking at about, and I knew that I should have extended this, but Chareka had asked how long the show was. Typically, it's an hour and a half, and we can go 2 hours. We're getting off into that hour and a half standpoint. But let me make sure that I give anybody opportunity. I know I haven't gotten to Vanessa. I haven't gotten to Paula as well, and I know Dr. Riggins, Pastor Riggins, is out there probably. Is there any caller on the line who called in specifically to ask a question that they may have had on their mind that they would like to ask to either Chareka or CJ, and now with Dr. Broder being here from the psychological standpoint? Is there any caller that's out there?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, caller.
I may.
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Jabbar. How's everyone doing?
How you doing, Jabbar?
Hello, Jabbar. Good, thank you.
My first time on the show. Let me say this. I've been listening for a while here, and the thing that puzzles me is that no one has addressed the statutes, codes, and ordinances that the police officers are operating under, especially when it comes to what you all are referring to as traffic stops. If you look at the word traffic in the legal dictionary, it clearly tells you that traffic is trade or commerce. If you look up the word driver, it clearly tells you that a driver is one employed and conducting or operating a coach. If you look up the word transportation, it clearly tells you that transportation is the movement of products, goods, and services by a carrier for a fee. I said all that to say this. The majority of these quote-unquote traffic stops are being misapplied upon people who are not engaged in any type of commercial activity while they are in their private, non-passenger automobiles, which people make the mistake of calling their vehicles. A vehicle is a device that's used to transportate to transport products and passengers. So we have two attorneys on the line here, and it really bothers me that neither one of these attorneys have addressed the actual statute, codes, and ordinances, which term is law, that governs the way these police officers are acting. If you don't understand the law that's governing you, how do you know if the police officer is doing his job according to the rules and the procedures that he's been trained in?
Well,
rules and procedures are approved by the attorneys of the city or the county or the state. These lawyers and attorneys, public officials, they know what a vehicle is, they know what a driver is, they know what traffic is, and they know it's all commercial.
You know what, caller? You have a very good point, but I'm gonna hasten to tell you, because I am part of both of those. I have a Louisiana Revised Statute criminal procedure book that's in my hand that's about 3 inches or better. So it would be highly impossible for anybody that's a non-lawyer to understand the procedure, the criminal codes, and as such, that goes with whatever it is you're saying. I understand exactly what you're saying, but I cannot and will not punish the two attorneys that's on this line for not going off into something that you can't learn in 3 years of law school. It's impossible.
I learned it in less than 6 months, sir. All you need to know is the definition of the legal terms, and you can see what the quote-unquote traffic laws apply to. If you're not engaged in any type of commerce or traffic, or you're not doing anything that's endangering or putting someone's life in danger, technically the police have no reason to stop you other than to maybe, if your tail light out, they can stop you and say, please get your tail light changed.
Mm-hmm.
But they have no right, if you're not engaged in commerce,
mm-hmm.
to you a citation or to order you out of your private, non-passenger automobile, and that's exactly what it is.
So let me ask you this.
When you say the word vehicle, you're stepping into their jurisdiction, which allows them to do the things that they're doing, because they are assuming that you are operating in commerce.
Mm-hmm.
And the statute, codes, and ordinances of a city or town or county are there to regulate commercial activity.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No disrespect.
That's what I'm saying. So people who are the police are doing it.
Hold on, caller. Hold on. Caller. Hold on. Let CJ come in. Go ahead, CJ.
What I'm gonna say is, brother, I appreciate the analysis, but you have to be very cautious in your attempts to interpret the law through the legal dictionary. There's common law that exists. There's statutory law that exists. So you're going to have to be looking at case law and a multitude of things when making a determination on what it is that is being interpreted by the laws according to whatever state you're in. Now, if you're in the state of Texas, Chareka can probably speak to the state of Texas better, in the Texas codes better than I can. If you're in the state of Mississippi, although they're in the same district, the laws may be a little bit different. What I can tell you for your safety, brother, is that the place to have court with regard to what the law is and what the law isn't is not in the car with the police officer during the traffic stop. If you want to offer your interpretation of what the law is, then the best place to do it is in the courtroom. I'm not saying you're right or you're wrong. You might be shutting it down right now. But the best person to tell that to is the judge. The best person to tell that to is the judge and the jury, because the officer, between trying to tell him and not, at some point, if the officer interprets that, well, this person ain't gonna do what it is I want to do because they want to assert what their knowledge of their rights is in this particular instance, and they want to tell me what that is, then that officer is going to begin to engage you in a different manner. And when he does so, that doesn't mean that he's right in doing so, but it certainly doesn't mean that you're going to be able to make the argument that you hope to make with that officer that's going to get you home that night. And ultimately, I think I can speak for myself, and I believe that Attorney Gadsden's goal also is to ensure that people get home that night so that they can then make their arguments in court. Because you're not going to be able to avoid court with the argument that you're making to the officer right now with regard to whether or not you are involved in commercial travel or whether or not you are involved in private travel at that time. And that resistance, ultimately, it could be the difference between life and death, brother.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can I make a quick comment?
Let me just say this.
Okay.
I am a Texas attorney, and in regards to the traffic laws and specifically commercial driving and citizens who have driver's licenses, these are actually this is legislation that comes from the state of Texas. This is not legislation from municipalities or counties. This comes straight from Texas Constitution and statutes. Furthermore, you have to be careful with looking at a definition in a what I would call maybe a lay dictionary, because when you get into legal terms, some things become terms of art. And so just because, and that's why we have, throughout law school, you'll see attorneys, law students toting around Black's Law Dictionary. And when you see other attorneys still, out practicing, they may still carry that dictionary. So understand that just because commercial says commercial in a Webster dictionary, that may not necessarily translate the same in regards to specific statutes. Furthermore, in regards to driver's license, that's the reason why me as a private citizen driver, I have a regular driver's license, and somebody driving an 18-wheeler for the use of commerce has a commercial driver's license. So when you see traffic laws and when you see individuals who are arrested for traffic violations, these are not constitutional violations. These are actually real laws in place that people have violated, and the DAs and the individuals bringing the charges have to prove that this law was violated. And these are not figments of our imagination. But again, like Attorney Lawrence said, where you are best able to fight is in court, and not with a police officer who is probably very much aware of what he plans on arresting you for and taking you in for. The charge may not stick, but by the time he gets you by the time you finish arguing and get handcuffed, he'll probably be able to come up with something that'll be in a penal code book that the DA can charge you with, present to the judge when it's time to have you be read your probable cause facts and whether or not they believe that probable cause was found to have you arrested.
Chareka, right.
I would agree with everything you all said, especially when it comes to trying to make an argument to a police officer. That's one thing you don't want to do.
Right.
But speaking for myself in particular, and maybe this could be an example for other people, if you know what the law says,
right,
who it applies to, if you are pulled over by a police officer, and you know he's going to give you a ticket, just accept the ticket and handle it through the court.
Right,
because if you know the law, then most likely you're going to win the case anyway. Now, speaking of the statute codes of a state, those are just codes. Those aren't laws. Those are the interpretations which have been of the law, which has been codified either in the state statute or municipal code. So if you get to the actual law that the states are enforcing, which they have coded into their code, then you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. That the traffic code is specific. It's that. It's to regulate the commercial activity on roads. But that doesn't mean if you do something that endangers someone, that's a separate issue, which they rightfully have a right to stop you and prevent you from doing something that's reckless, such as speeding at a certain point over the posted speed limit. And here in Virginia, if you drive 15 miles over the posted speed limit, that's considered reckless. So that's what I want to say.
Yeah, caller. And I want to go back to Chareka. I think you and CJ would give credit where credit is due. Just to hear the caller say that he's familiar with the statutes and things of that nature, the codes, that brings joy to me, because where I'm from, it's very seldom that you're going to get somebody that's not inside the courtroom on a daily basis to even be familiar with what the criminal court the procedures are. So, caller, again, hey, thanks for calling in, thanks for listening, and stay on the line, because we got a couple other things we're going to get, and we may be able to get back to you. Dr. Broder, come on in. You had something that you want to say, and then I'm going to bring Aaron. I haven't gotten to but Vanessa or Paula, but I'm going to try to. Come on in, Doctor.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to say I really like the suggestions that CJ had for me in terms of trying to listen to the community more in terms of how it's affecting them, because it's an aspect that I could bring back to law enforcement.
Right.
I think my whole angle, the whole thing, since I really feel like each of us has our gifts, each of us has the things that we can contribute, and my particular gift is that, I can talk to department heads and I can, incorporate things in my classes, and I can try to make inroads that way. And so I appreciate you bringing me, that idea, so that I can, that's something that I hadn't done except through my own community. But I have access to communities that may be more impacted than mine.
Well, Dr. Broder, let me ask you this. Since we're talking about coming to this table, this diversity table, this table of love, why wouldn't that consist of defense attorneys, DAs, people from the community, law enforcement? Let everybody come up with policies and be a part of the conversation when it comes to policies and procedures, not necessarily drafting them, but because I draft policies for our entire school system. So my position is always to be inclusive of those that's going to be affected by this. And I think, CJ, you would at least co-sign a part of that, because I think the more people you have involved in this particular process, the more information can be relayed back, like the caller is saying, become more familiar with what these laws are. Because once again, if we already have this trust versus mistrust going on, and the people that you mistrust are making these laws, there's no trust. Mm-hmm. So right. I think what has to happen is the 1%ers has to realize that the power and control that you feel you have, because you include other people in this process, it's not taking away any power and control. As a matter of fact, it's giving you something that you don't have, which is the respect, which goes further than the power and all that. I'll let you come in, CJ and Chareka, and then I'm going to try to get, let me do this. Let me go to Vanessa in Houston. Vanessa, okay. I know we've had you out there for a while. Do you have any comment, or question, or concern that you'd like to talk about? Vanessa hails from Flint, Michigan, by the way. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Yeah, I had a couple of comments real short. I watched Good Morning America this morning, and the Lamont Hill made a really good point. And to the two attorneys, he has made the comment about we just can't behave ourselves to a brutal cop. So it's like, we have to tell our kids to act a certain way, dress a certain way, do this, say yes sir, yes sir, no ma'am. You can still get your head blown off. So he was just saying that's the hardest part about all of this. But I wanted to ask you guys, as far as the dash cam goes on the police car dash cam, it doesn't go to the side. So if you can see the land issue, people come over to the side, out of the view of the dash cam. Now, if a police officer asks you to get out of the car and he pulls you over to the side, out of the view of the dash cam, can you tell them, no, I want to be in the view of this dash cam?
Yes.
You can?
Yes, you can. Say, officer, I would prefer to stay where the camera is located. You can ask him if he has on his camera, and if he has on a body camera as well, and if his body camera is on. You can ask him what his name is, what his badge number is. You ask just the same way that you have to provide your information to identify the officer to you identify yourself to the officer. The officer also has to identify himself to you. You can also know who that officer's superior is in the event that you are not comfortable with the way something is occurring. You can ask for his superior to be present if you so choose. I don't know if it really has to be a determination on whether or not you want more police at the situation or not. But I can especially see that I can see it for men and women, but certainly in the light of things like with what happened with Sandra Bland, I can certainly understand sisters that would prefer to have someone present, would prefer to be in the purview of the camera, because you have an officer in Oklahoma that was racist like that. You have people that are imposters as police officers. So certainly, it would be both in the officer's best interest. There should be no reason why the officer should say, "I want to bring you to the side of this vehicle." They can search you from the front of the vehicle. A lot of times they won't require you to put your hands on the hood of the vehicle if it's been running, because the hood of the vehicle has a tendency to be hot in those moments. But certainly, always express to the officer why it is that you feel how you feel, and you do have a right to record. So, okay?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But record yourself and know.
Right. Let me go to Paula in Missouri. Paula, are you still out there?
Yes, I am.
Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
When police officers are hired to do their job, how long is their training period, for one? And do they get psychological testing? And do they get questioned about, or I'm sure they would probably lie, but do they have a prejudice against black people? Because as a white woman, I've been pulled over a bunch of times, and I was doing 95 miles an hour one time, and I got out of the car and I just started talking to the highway patrolman, and we wound up talking about a whole bunch of different things, and he just let me off the warning. And I think if I was black, I would have a whole different situation.
Which is exactly my point.
And I'm wondering if, I don't know how long the training period is for, like, the police academy. And I'm wondering what kind of psychological testing they go through. And I'm wondering if they are questioned about how they feel about race. I'm wondering all kinds of things about what happens in their period of training and how long it is before they finish their training and then they're put out on the street.
Okay. I think that Mr. Glass, I think that the doctor may.
Yeah. I was gonna shoot that to you, Chareka, but Dr. Broder, you may know more about that. I know Police Academy here has X amount of weeks that they go, but Dr. Broder, do you know that information?
Well, I don't know how long the academy is.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that they do go through a battery of psychological tests, including one called the MMPI, and that's 600 questions, and they're trying to discern personality. But the truth is, if they're, someone can have some flags, but if they're not flagrant flags, they can be let through if everything else is in good order. So, there are definitely officers that have aggressive tendencies that are hired. I don't know if they have specific tests that they ask about racial bias. I think that's something that's being implemented now.
Mm-hmm. And I think it should be. I really do think it should be, because it seems to me that someone white like myself, I'm white, I have blonde hair, I've been pulled over for speeding, I've been pulled over for other things, and I've only gotten a ticket twice in my life, and I'm 60 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, well,
I just think that there's huge disparity between being pulled over if you're white and being pulled over if you're black.
Well, Paula, I'll tell you, just for the purposes of jokes, somebody says that Paula's got away with cops. Let me. We're looking at about 9 minutes left. What I want to do, Dr. Broder's out there, and I want her, and especially CJ and Chareka, to give out any information if you are in those areas and you need an attorney. You can give as much information as you like, CJ and Chareka, what you specialize in or whatever. So in other words, I'm going to allow you to give your own personal commercial right now, and I'll start with you, Chareka. Whatever personal information you'd like to give out in your closing statement, that'll be fine. Then I'll go to CJ. And CJ, I think that you and Dr. Broder need to have a further conversation along with Chareka, because again, mainstream media is not trying to connect these dots like we are. They're continuing to try to distort the message and divide the people. Our message simply here is to make a difference and to bring these people together. So I really wish you guys would at least network, even if it's from an electronic standpoint, because when we tell a neighbor, tell a friend, we can get out more information than what we have out now. So go ahead, Chareka.
Yes, you can find me at my website, attorneycg.com. My name is, I know you've heard Baron call me Chareka Marchelle.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Actually, Chareka. It's okay. It's okay. That's still my name. My full name is Attorney Chareka Marchelle-Esq. My phone number is 713-489-1851. Specifically, I want to encourage anyone who has any questions to feel comfortable with calling me. There's never any pressure to hire me. It's always my goal to make sure that people are informed, especially like I mentioned earlier about filing the complaint against police officers. That's something that I will absolutely help you with, and there is no expectation of payment. It's just the expectation of boldness to come forward and report how you were mistreated. Again, my name is Attorney Chareka Gaston. My website is attorneycg.com, and my phone number is 713-489-1851. My law firm is Gaston Law Group, PLLC, and you can find me on Facebook as well.
Okay, and my man CJ, who just jumped in last night, Chareka, I know that you like this because CJ, I didn't know him from Adam versus Eve. CJ said something that I join in and support you, so I reached out to CJ. He said certainly, and here we are 24 hours later, we're doing this. Matter of fact, we've moved the ball from one end of the field to the other, about to make a touchdown. Go ahead on, CJ.
First, Mr. Glass, I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and to speak with my good friend Chareka, as well as with the doctor and all of the other guests. My name is CJ Lawrence. I'm out of Mississippi. My firm is Lawrence Law Group. You can reach me at 601-460-9111. That's 601-460-9111. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook. I'm heavily involved on social media, and the name is the same. It's CJ Lawrence, LAWRENCE, Esquire, ES2UIRE.
And Chareka and Lawrence, CJ, I know that the Louis A. Martinet Society out of Baton Rouge Southern University, they were offering free legal services to anyone that was out there protesting who may have been wrongfully, arrested. So you guys, are you a part of that? I know most people from Louisiana are involved in that, especially went to Southern Law School. So do you guys have any involvement with that or any information you'd like to put out?
Absolutely. If you are arrested in the Houston area for your participation in any protest, I will represent you pro bono, and I will go in there and fight hard.
You heard it right here live on the Smoking Glass Hour. Come on in, CJ.
Yes, and if you're in the state of Mississippi, if you are in either Jackson or Hattiesburg, Southern Mississippi, or Central Mississippi, and you are involved in protests, legitimate protests, for our people and for other oppressed people, then I too will represent and stand up and speak up for you pro bono, and I will fight just as hard for you. Attorney Gatson and I have worked on cases together, and she's a vigorous attorney, a passionate attorney, and somebody who I certainly believe in, and I am sure that I will fight for you as though you were my family, because when I'm not in the courtroom, I'm also on the front line too.
Okay, CJ,
absolutely, and I could definitely co-sign. CJ Jackson and his hard work in a courtroom.
Chareka, you only licensed in state of Texas, right?
Yes, I am right now.
Okay, what were you pursuing? Anywhere in Louisiana?
No, I am not pursuing a law license in Louisiana. However, my network is strong, and I can locate you individuals who I am certain will help you if I need to refer you to an attorney in Louisiana.
Okay. How about you, CJ?
I also have. I'm not licensed in Louisiana.
Okay.
Louisiana has Napoleonic Code.
Yes, we do.
I do at some point. But we are deeply connected with many of the attorneys in Louisiana. In fact, we stayed up all night the other night working with them to try to get D. Ray McKesson and many of the protesters that were incarcerated in East Baton Rouge Parish the other night out of the jail there. So we stayed up all night working on that along with the Martinet Society.
Okay, very well. Dr. Broder, any information that you'd like to provide? I know that I believe you travel all across the country doing different services and things like that. Maybe once again you, CJ, and Chareka at some point can connect, because again, in order to get this ball rolling faster and quicker and better than what it is, we're going to have to be more inclusive. And if the very moment we stop, don't pick up the fact of being inclusive, we're only repeating the same cycle, and the world continues to listen and look at us with that big smile, saying that how can you talk about us when you're hypocritical, when you're a hypocrite regarding your own laws? So, Doc, you got any information you want to put out?
Sure, absolutely. You can find me at drsallybroder.com, and on my website I have my email, and my telephone number is 415-789-7691. I'm licensed in California and Kentucky, so I'm back and forth to both of those states, trying to get established training law enforcement in Kentucky as well. But I would love to connect with you guys, and I'll look you up on the on Twitter and Facebook and get connected to you there. And thank you for your show. Thanks, Baron. What a great show.
Yeah. What I'm gonna do? I'm kind of like Prince, which is my #1 artist. It's never about me. It's always about those who are included in this particular program. I'm going to let Aaron Hopkins come in from Dallas, Texas, and close us out in his own way. Aaron, come on in and make your final comments, and I'll let you close us out.
Okay, thank you, Baron. It's a question regarding the gentleman that I'm not going to assume that everybody saw, but there was a gentleman at the protest here in Dallas who earlier in the protest was seen. He was carrying an unloaded weapon. He at some point was identified by somebody as a potential suspect in the events that occurred. He was detained, but he volunteered. He was contacted by his brother and was told to, basically, find somebody. You need to turn over your weapon, and he followed those instructions. So my question, in a situation like that, I know the gentleman, he thought he was, I guess, exercising his Second Amendment right, which in the same situation that we were discussing, the traffic stop, this is a situation where there may be a perception that he's able to exercise that particular right, but given the climate and given the situation, I didn't particularly think it was wise at that time to make that statement. And this was man to man, and I said so on his Facebook page. I don't know the gentleman personally, but my question is,
Aaron,
video, yes, sir.
Before you go into a course, before we won't get off in recording, because we got probably about 35 seconds. So if you can kind of reach out to CJ or Chareka on Facebook and get that course announced, I don't want you to get cut off. So just close us out in your own way.
Will do. I appreciate you all coming on and sharing everything with us, and I'm sure everybody that was listening got some very important information that we can put to use. I appreciate your coming on.
Well, yeah, Chareka and CJ, thanks for coming on. I hope this is not the last time. I hope we can reach out to you guys again. What I'm going to do immediately, I'm going to message you, Chareka, and you can give that information to CJ. I got a little reward for you guys, and I'm going to do it in my own way, but I want you to at least consider it and do exactly what you can do with it. At the end of the day, when the smoke clear and the dust settle, we've at least tried to provide some valid information with hopes of preventing some of these atrocities from occurring once again. So thanks, CJ. Thanks, Chareka. Good night to Paula. Good night to Debbie. Good night to Dave. Good night to Vanessa, Pastor Riggins, Nikki, and everybody else that's on the line, and all those callers who took the time to listen to tonight's broadcast. See you Thursday night at 8 o'clock. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.